you are looking at United States history, it's not always pretty, and you're certainly going to walk away with that impression after we take a good look at this photograph taken by Jacob Riis in New York City in the 1800s. But let's just start off by making some observations. So right away, you're probably going to notice that there's three kids right over here. Um, and they seem to be huddled together. Another observation I'm noticing here is that there's no shoes. The rest of their body seems to be dressed warmly. I mean, I know kids do walk around in the summertime without shoes on quite comfortably, but I'm getting the impression that it's not summertime just by looking at the fact that they're bundled up in what appears to be some coats. Some other observations I'm looking at, we have this grate down over here. There seems to be some steps over here, and right above here, I would probably say that this is probably a sidewalk area, probably on a New York City street. So when we start to go through this photograph, I mean, it definitely catches your eye because there's a lot of questions you have because now we have three kids in New York City. Age range, we don't know, but if we had to guess, these are probably elementary school kids. So let's just say, anywhere between the ages of maybe 7 to 11. And that kind of breaks your heart. When you're looking here, I mean, if you start off why are they here? The answers to those questions are going to make you a bit uncomfortable. Some of the possible answers here are they homeless? Why did they choose this particular spot? Just looking over here from the grates over here, maybe there's a subway below or something of some sort of that was going to provide some sort of warmth that might come up over here. Another thing that kind of catches your eye is the location. Why are they down over in this area? And this is possibly to kind of maybe it's a windy day. They're trying to protect themselves from the cold. They're definitely cold because they're huddled up together. And these poor kids without shoes on, that's got to be tough. Also, looking at this, if you're starting off with the why questions, why are they even there to begin with? You know, Homelessness is a possible issue. What else could be taking place in their lives that would put them on the streets? And then you wind up asking questions like, where are their parents? Why are they not in school? There's a lot of why questions that does come up when analyzing this document. The why are they there? Why are they not in school? And the answers, kind of also point towards like reforms. A big word that we're going to be using throughout this unit is reforms need to start to take place here. And when we're looking at reforms, we're also talking about change. Because there's going to need to take place some changes. If this is what's going out on the street, there is definitely a problem here. Why are they not in school? Maybe there's not any education laws. Here's the other thing too, when you're looking at it, all right, well, if they're cold and they're out on the street on their own, are they hungry? That's another possibility. Other possibilities as well is, are they also working? You don't have child labor laws in effect to prevent them from working. Are they working during the day? Or is this where they are sleeping at night? Some other things when you're looking at this photograph, maybe why this was taken. When you're looking at photographs of children, the norm would be to see children together, maybe laughing, smiling, ice cream, lollipops, whatever. That would be a photograph where you're posed. This would be what a photographer might consider a candid pose, where it's, nobody's telling them to say cheese. Nobody's saying to get together, short people in front. This is a very, very candid photo. And when we're talking about the fact that it was candid, the big thing is that it's also very honest. There's no posing. None of that is taking place here. And even though this word honest is normally a very positive word when in the big picture, the honesty here is that things are not going well in New York City, particularly for children. Why did this photographer take this picture? Jacob Riis, was trying to document city slum life. So if we're looking here at this particular photo, maybe this is something that's going to make people stop and think. When you're walking through New York City, sometimes people do see homeless people or people living in poverty conditions. And what might happen is that when you see something like this, it kind of makes you a little bit uncomfortable, because you want to do something, but you can't do something in certain instances. I would imagine that there were probably, adults who walked by who looked the other way. This something like this is too tough to look at. Were there certain people that maybe helped them out? You would certainly hope, but when you're walking by and you're just seeing three kids, you get a little snapshot of what their life might be like. When you have a photograph now staring you in the face like this one, now we have to stop and we have to look at the surroundings. And this moment of pause, if you will, that we're having by looking at it and kind of throwing up some words like here, like the why and certain questions that are coming up, um, it definitely makes your heart hurt even more for them, because now you're sitting here and now you're really providing an analysis here. How old are these kids? What should they be doing? They should be in school. If they're not in school, what should they be doing? They should be out playing, having fun. Can they? No. If you're looking at this particular photograph, what is their family life like? Were these immigrant children? Were the children of immigrants? Poverty is definitely a problem when we look at this. Now, this is just a snapshot of New York City, just one. And, if you're the type of person that wants to say that this is not actually going on, and also if you're a historian that's looking back and you want to kind of verify or corroborate if this is actually happening, you would probably take a look at more photographs to see the surroundings. So, as we continue to look what city life was like for children, this is certainly how the other half is living. We can see that children living out on the street is definitely not an isolated case, because now we have another photograph that's going to corroborate the fact that this was probably taking place. And of course, when there is one photo like this or two photos that we're looking at today, there has to be more instances where this is actually going on. So let's talk about, maybe what was happening during this particular time period, when we're looking at this. We do know urbanization was taking place. And of course, when we're looking at this word that I'm struggling to write at the moment, when we're looking at this particular word, you have more and more movement of rural areas to cities. And cities are going to provide a lot of opportunities for people, jobs, maybe in certain areas, housing. There are a lot of opportunities in cities, whether it be New York City or Chicago. You also have that, you notice that particularly in New York City, the city is really close to Ellis Island. So you had a lot of immigrants who were also coming off of boats from Europe, and that's where they were settling in the city. And why? If we're looking in terms of geography and in terms of convenience, they were getting off these boats and that was close. That was it. You're not going to go out to the suburbs because it's going to cost you more money. And that's money. Money was a luxury that a lot of immigrants did not have. Another thing that this also tells you about in terms of what's going on, of course, there's going to be certainly a series of reforms that are going to need to take place. We already talked about the fact that, well, these children need to be in school, but it shouldn't stop there. Are there going to be particular services that are going to be needed to provide for children, and not only children, that the poverty population, the people who are in low socioeconomic status who are having difficulties, and what kind of services could you provide for these children? Community centers, schools as well, and whether it be a school or community center, we definitely talked about how these children are probably hungry. Maybe one of these community centers is going to provide possibly clothing for them. We noticed in the previous photograph that children did not have shoes. So that's going to be another thing that we have to look at in terms of reforms. This could also be an opportunity, and this winds up happening with quite a few of Jacob Riis's photographs, that the surrounding neighborhood that this was taking place, that this photo was taken in, those, you saw a great deal of garbage and debris. So sanitation systems is going to be another issue that you wind up getting at, building codes. Maybe when you're looking at, since we looked at photographs of people living in cramped apartments, another question that could be, maybe it was this family's turn to sleep outside. And again, when we look at photographs like this, it does pose a lot of questions. And when you're asking these questions in your mind, naturally, you start to take what's in front of you and you start to answer these questions and draw some conclusions and make some inferences. And the questions that you're answering in your mind are going to make you uncomfortable, because when we're looking at conditions of poverty in any situation, but particularly children who don't seem to be like they're given a fair chance in life, it's certainly one of these particular situations that breaks the heart. What we do see in this one, since we are looking around, you see something that's very similar to the previous photo. These children are trying to stay out of sight, along with the steps. Where could this possibly be? Maybe outside a particular store. Who knows here? But when we're looking at this photo as well, this could possibly be a day that's cold. It might be in the late fall or in the winter, because you see right over here, this little guy is huddled up against them, almost getting into that fetal position to stay warm. In comparison to the previous photograph, we can almost say that these children, as bad off as they are, they're probably a little bit more fortunate than the previous ones, because if we look here, you see that they at least have shoes on. But again, this is not a great condition for children to be in. When we're looking at, again, if we're addressing the why the photo was taken, you're trying to also, and this is probably what Jacob Riis was doing, because he did tour the country showing these photos to the public. When it's the why, again, you want to try and get people to look at these photos, to stop and analyze them as we are doing right now, and then say that, hey, services need to be provided. We need to make sure that this is not happening to our youth. We need to give them a better chance. And when we look here, school laws or requirements for children to go to schools probably not in place right at this time. So if it is not a requirement for children to go to school, then what kind of life are they going to have in the future? So this is one of these things that maybe people walking the streets would try to turn their head away from, because they didn't want to look at it. They didn't want to ask those questions in their mind like we did, because they're not going to like the answers. But what Jacob Riis was able to do with these photographs is provide this photograph and this image, this candid moment that would make people uncomfortable, to the point where something needs to be done. You're addressing certain issues that really need to be taken care of.